Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Podcast Rangers, a Power Rangers podcast. I am Ryno, welcoming you to this week's episode. I think I just said that, but I like to repeat myself. This week, we're going to be talking about our favorite Power Ranger toys. So Ken and I went on a trip down memory lane to just kind of reminisce about some of our favorite toys that we had as kids, or maybe even didn't have. Maybe it was just the neighbor's toys and we had to always go over and play with, because that was sort of my situation a little bit. But no, yeah, it was one of those sort of episodes where later you're going to be like Googling eBay and being like, how much is a Power Morpher? How much is this Megazord? How much is that? So it's just kind of our personal favorites. We're not saying they're the best, they're the worst. We're just saying these are our favorite toys and they're the ones we still think about. And as you can tell by looking at the stuff behind me, I still have quite a few of them and I still am getting quite a few of them. So I just that's what I like to do. So let us know in the comments below what your favorite Power Ranger toys were when you were growing up, or what they are right now. Growing up, who cares? I'm an adult and I still buy them. Like I just said, I have someone pre-order right now. But let us know in the comments below, and we hope you enjoy this episode that's going to start right now. Toys, toys, toys. We're talking about our favorite Power Ranger toys. I'm Ryno.
I'm Ken.
And we are the Podcast Rangers.
Rangers.
Oh, you're never going to get it.
Never gonna get it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I am your host, Ryno, joined as always by my co-host,
Ken.
I think I used to say your name. I think I should say your name again.
That's what throws me off. Last time you were just like, yeah, you're just not prepared. You're not prepared. And I'm just like, no, I think you used to do it different. But
well, we also used to be able to make eye contact with each other. And in this day and age, we just are staring at a blank screen of just audio recordings.
Right, just spikes and peaks and valleys.
Maybe we should video chat with each other while we record the audio. Maybe that would help us or something. I don't know.
Potentially. Or make it more uncomfortable. I don't know. You'll see inside the recording closet.
It'll just be you lit by a dark computer screen inside with clothes dangling around you. Mm-hmm. Well, everyone, with that banter, we're here. We're just going to be chatting about, we thought it'd be fun to talk about some Power Ranger toys. We haven't really done a bunch of that yet. We did the New York Toy Fair, but that was just kind of on announcements. And I thought, we're old enough now. We've been kind of with the show since the beginning and grown up with the toys and are adults with the toys now, who not just the old toys, but the new toys and everything. We just kind of say, let's take a walk down memory lane and say some of our favorites that kind of pop out over time, that we're just really like, that was a high quality toy.
Or a low quality toy, depending, that you still loved.
Well, yeah, well, if it's like if you like the wiffle ball bat better than the titanium aloe,
aloe,
I don't even know what I'm saying.
Aloe vera.
Forget it. Yeah. It's late. Yeah. So, Ken, do you have like an immediate one that's like pops to your mind when I say Power Ranger toys? Does your mind immediately drift to one where you're like, that's my favorite Power Ranger toy ever?
There's one that I go to and one that is like a distinct memory. That's like my big one that I was like, oh, if we need to save this for like a longer story, that's my one.
Well, let me ask you this. Are you drawn more toward action figures or like the role play toys, like Morphers, swords, blasters, things like that? Megazords would be in with the action figures and stuff, I think.
So definitely action figures, and I collect a variety of action figures outside of like just the Power Ranger stuff. So that's always been where my kind of like wheelhouse is. It was also like the thing that was affordable for our family, like the youngest of 6 or 7, right? Like can't keep track. It's one of those things where it's like, well, you used to be able to get figures for $3.99 or something like that. All right. Now it's like $20 for like a good figure. But that was what my parents would do, is they would buy action figures versus like the weapons or the Megazords or what have you. Like every so often I might get like a play set, but I would reserve that for like X-Men or whatever I could find at a garage sale, right? Like I think I had the Ewok Village or the Robin Hood Village because it was the same play set. They just remolded it or repainted it. But that was like the thing. So action figures definitely until much later in life with disposable income. It was one of those things where it was like, well, maybe I want something else.
Well, I definitely, for me, it's been the thing that turns you into the Power Ranger, that makes you the Power Ranger. So I was always had this like kind of obsession with their like Communicator and the Morpher and the blasters, things like that, that really made me feel like I was the Power Ranger. And I also came from a pretty low income family, and my birthday is right around Christmas. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, it was one of those, you feel that pain. And
Yeah.
it's one of those sort of things where sometimes it would try and be a combined gift or whatever. But for me, I'd basically save up. Back in the day, a Morpher would be like $10. So that was where, now they're like $30. And
You're
it's,
lucky.
yeah. Well, are they really? Because I don't know that they're as good as they used to be either. That terrible Dino Charge American Morpher, that American toy was horrible.
Well, so
Um,
the cost of plastic being what it is now, like even the junkier stuff is more expensive than what
yeah.
we were, even with the cost of like the rise of inflation. But
Well, it's just one of those things where the toys were definitely cheaper, but I also feel like were less expensive, is what I should say. Of higher, some, not always, obviously, but a lot of times I feel like a little bit of a higher quality. I mean, a
mhm.
lot of times the role play specifically, the toys would just be the props on the show. So
Right.
I think that was something cool for me. But go ahead and tell me what you were going to tell me for that first one that pops out in your mind.
You want me to go with the largest one? Okay. So
Yeah, just the one that, like, I said, your collection's on fire. What do you grab?
so this was one of the stories when Ryno and I first started talking about doing this podcast. We started talking about, you know, the toy stuff. And when I was younger, again, to bring up the fact, like coming from a lower income family or like having many siblings, like my parents couldn't necessarily get the higher end Megazords. Like I grew up, I had the very tiny Megazord where you can remove the
Mhm.
feet, right? Um, and like the next door neighbor kid had like the really good stuff. He had everything. He even had like the Tor like Megazord, everything. Um,
Oh.
when the Thunder Megazord came out, that was the thing on that Christmas. And again, reiterating, like I have a December birthday, like 7 days exactly from Christmas.
Oh
So
my gosh,
I
mine
would
is
always,
7 days from Christmas too,
I know
but
we're
the
just
other
on opposite
way. I'm on the
ends.
other side, yeah. We're a
So
Christmas sandwich, you and I.
perfect, the worst sandwich. Um, but so it's always been one of those things where my mom would be like, "Yeah, just open one of your Christmas presents." So the one year I remember when that Megazord came out, and I had never anticipated getting a Thunder Megazord, but it was the new thing on the show and it was new on the toy shelves. I remember I came out to the Christmas tree that year and it was out of the box. They
Out of the
had
box.
So what they had done was my brother was obsessed. He's like 10 years older than me. My older brother, not my oldest brother, but he's 10 years older than me. Like we would fight constantly, but like he was obsessed with Transformers. And the Megazords he thought were kind of cool because they have that very same kind of quality.
Yeah,
But
transforming. Yeah.
so my mom got him to put it together, put all the stickers on, whatever was included with that with a Thunder Megazord, because there's a little bit more to that, I think, than the regular like Dino
Oh.
Megazord.
Oh, yeah, 1,000%. I
Um,
still don't even know how you would assemble the Thunder Megazord.
so she had him do it and they set it in the Christmas tree, like under it behind some other stuff. So eventually after things started like the smaller, like, you got a couple pairs of socks, you got this thing from your grandparents, and then you're just like, oh wait, what's that? And it was very much like a Christmas story, like, Ralphie, I think there's something else back there, why don't you go look? um and it wasn't like a pink nightmare, it was the Thunder Megazord, and I lost my mind. It was incredible, like nothing else could beat that peak.
Was it the complete Thunder Megazord? Like,
Yes.
because
So
remember,
it was,
these were sold separately. Like,
yeah,
you had the 4 Zords in one, and then you had, the Red Dragon Thunder Megazord was separately, right?
correct.
Yeah.
So like what they call it, the action team, and then you had the red dragon
Yeah.
one, right? Um, and I remember that was the thing too. Like I was like, well, I'm never gonna get that because they're two separate expensive toys.
Mhm.
Um, but they did it that year. Like they came in clutch. My parents were divorced, so it was always like one of those things where my mom and my dad would like sometimes like get together to be like, all right, well, what are we gonna get him this year? And like for a bigger gift, maybe that was it. But it was never anything like that. So I got that. It was like the high, right? It's always one of those things like you're just like in terms of toy collecting, you're like, I'm chasing that dragon Zord
Hmm.
of collecting. But we had a neighbor kid across the street, and it's kind of one of those like other side of the tracks things where like you would like bring toys to school and let other kids borrow them so you could borrow their toys and kind of like, see what other toys were out there. That's how I saw Street Sharks for the first time. I let this kid borrow the Thunder Megazord for
I don't
a
like where
couple.
this story's going.
I let this kid borrow the Street Sharks, or a couple Street Sharks, two Street Sharks, right? I let this kid borrow the Thunder Megazord. That kid moved like fly by night. Him and his like, cause he had like a really
Get the
rough
kid in
like.
the car and go.
He's just like, Mom, I got the Zord. Go, go, go.
Go.
But like he like his upbringing was kind of like rough, so like it was one of those things where like he didn't know he was moving, but they were just like, we're gone. And he took my Thunder Megazord, and I had Ripster and like
He made out.
Slamoo. I didn't even have like Streaks, the Street Shark with the rollerblades. I didn't have the cool one. I had the main one and the Slamoo one. So since then, I had always been one of those people who was like, I don't let people touch my things, and I don't like um I if I collect things, I collect them because I want them. I'm going to take them out of the box. I'm going
Yeah,
to
I'm that
like,
way too.
these are kind of like significant to me because I felt like wronged at a certain point. And it wasn't until we started talking about this and we had kind of like stumbled across one of the legacy ones. And I would always been like putting that off. I'm like, I'm not going to spend $200 on the legacy Thunder Megazord.
Hmm.
And like, you had been like, I have this extra Tiger one. It seems like it would strike you kind of like, and I was like, damn it. Like,
Well, I had it in the
um,
box. I got it on like clearance because every now and then one would go on clearance, and I walked in and I was like, well, I'm not planning on getting these on clearance. I have the original, and I was in that mode where I was like, well, the look the same, but one's got like metal parts, one doesn't. And I was like, I don't need this one, but I bought it anyways because I was like, well, maybe I'll be able to find the Thunder Megazord on clearance. And sure enough, I didn't. And I was like, well, I'm probably not going to invest in this now. And then you talked about it so much that I was like, this will bring you more happiness than me. So I gave it to you, sold it to you for the price I bought, the clearance price I bought it, maybe even less. I don't know what I sold it to you for. Like,
it was like
it was like,
$40. I don't know.
yeah. And it was like, I don't know what it was when it came out, like $80 or something ridiculous. I remember
Yeah,
being like, this is insane.
but I like, and that was like another one of those things. Like the Tiger Megazord I got after that fact was like my parents had kind of like learned their lesson. They're like, well, we're gonna keep getting you the tiny ones and the remote control ones. So I had the remote control
Yeah.
Tiger Zord. So it was like the one where it was like a wired controller and he would like move his legs kind of like forward, like um but so like that one I loved it, and it like went up in my kind of like office thing at work, like it's at work, right? And then I was just like, well, now I got some illustration like commission money that I wasn't anticipating, so I'm just gonna buy the Thunder Megazord because there was one of those like Amazon warehouse deals where it was like someone was selling it super cheap. It was through Amazon, so I had the buyer protection, but they were like, packaging is damaged. And I remember I sent you pictures when I opened it because I was like, this is gonna be one of those like either really dark stories from the Amazon warehouse deals where it's like, this is not what I ordered at all, and there's
Yeah.
roaches, or it's gonna be one of those things where it's like in pristine condition, and it was in pristine condition, like everything was wrapped in plastic inside. It was still taped. I think tape was removed on one side, but like no one had touched this. And so I got the Legacy Thunder Megazord, and it was insane. Like it obviously was not the same like magic of that Christmas morning of like my family kind of coming together to do this really special thing, but it was still one of those things where it's like I've been wanting this for so long, like from my adolescent into adult life, and like
Yeah.
resenting things that didn't build up to this. So it was great. So I have those two side by side at work, and it's just one of those things where it's just makes me super happy to see them. I mean, the Thunder Megazord Legacy one has its faults and is kind of like, it's very heavy and sturdy, and I love it, but it's like kind of rickety and kind of weird, but it's still like, it makes up for the fact of, going almost, what, 30, no, I'm, oh, well, what, 28 years without having it?
Like 94 would be the second season, right?
Yeah.
26 years.
So we should
Right? Is
not
that
get in.
math not
That's
correct?
not like, so in listening back to
Oh
some of
my
these
God,
episodes,
no.
maybe we shouldn't math with you, because that's the other thing
Wait a
I've
minute, 20,
noticed.
26 years. 26 years. I am correct. 94
Okay.
from 94 to 2020 is 26 years.
Everybody gets
Yeah.
one. All right.
No, I never had that one when I was a kid, and I had a friend, like you said, one who had all the stuff, and he had it. And even when he stopped liking it, and I got some of his toys, for some reason that went before I could get to it. But I'll tell you the thing I got that I always like coveted. I wanted it so bad, and it was in my hands one day. And I remember being at the toy store, and my friend even like, we are like 9 years old, and he's like trying to give me some of his Toys R Us money, and so that I could afford it. Because again, I didn't have all this money. But then
Jeffrey
his
Bucks.
parents saw him give me the Jeffrey bucks, and they were like, "No." And it was I had in my hand in the box the Blade Blaster with the Morpher, because that they didn't sell that for all those seasons they used that. They only had that like the first season.
Right.
And I remember, I was so close. It's still to this day one of those things where I still want it. Like, not in the box to keep it in the box, because I am of both. Like, if I get it, I'm probably just taking it out of the box. Some stuff
Hmm.
like you've obviously been to my house. The stuff I have in the box here is really just in the box because I don't have any way to display it right now. So I just leave
Right.
it in the box just to keep it, because I also keep the boxes even when I open the stuff most of the time. But I there's just something about that original Morpher. Like, when I was a kid, I would make it out of like paper, make it out of like popsicle sticks, anything I could, because I just always was like, I had this like dream once when I was a kid about the Morpher, and having it and like literally morphing with it. And it was one of those things where I'd be the type of kid who like had it in my backpack, like because my friend would let me borrow it sometimes, and I would just like keep it with me. So like I have, when he stopped liking it years later, not even years later, he stopped liking it around like season 3 post movie, and basically right when Kimberly left, he didn't like it anymore because he really liked Kimberly. He didn't give me the toys then. It was like so it would have been like 96 or something like that, and it wasn't till like 2000 and like 3 or 4 or something like that. They were like moving, and his mother said she had some of this stuff, and it was basically I got his flip heads. I think that's why I have the flip heads, because he had those, and the Morpher. And I was like, oh my God, this is the Morpher. Like, he gave me that Morpher, and I was just so happy to have it. And like, it's worn, because that thing I had like everywhere with me, and you can see like the stickers are. I need to get those repro
Yeah, you
labels or
can get
whatever they're
repro
called.
labels.
Yeah, and I keep the red movie coin inside of it, because that was the only coins I had were the movie ones, and
Hmm.
it's like the paint from that is rubbed off, because you can tell I had it with me everywhere. And like, and then because my job, I do a podcast about other stuff, and meet people from that. I met somebody who was like, "Oh, I'm back home and going through some old stuff," and he was like, "I have this Morpher," and I was like, "I'll buy it off you," because I was like, "I don't want you to give it to me. I don't want to give a deal." So I bought it off him for like eBay prices, because I was like, I'm not here to like
You're not
take you for it,
haggling.
Yeah, I was like, I don't want to be that guy who pays you less than it's worth or anything like that. Like, I appreciate it, but I was very honorable about it. And so like, I have another one, and that one's in like perfect condition. So he gave me that with the coins, and I want to get 5 of the original Morphers still. So every now and then I still look at eBay, but we're in this mode right now where I can't buy it. But the original Power Morpher is a thing for me. Like, it is sad, like, they didn't make the black part of the clip that you could wear, because the Power Rangers, for me, they always had it on their back. They always reach back to grab it, and that was the thing when I was a kid. I was always like, that's what they would do when they would morph. But then there'd be like episodes where they'd pull it out of the backpack, like whenever Billy
Hmm.
was evil, they had them all in their backpack, and I'm like, what a day to leave them in your backpack, guys. But um,
They
I
couldn't do
like
that
the
today with
original
mesh
Morpher.
backpacks.
Well, I like the original Morpher way better than the Legacy Morpher. The Legacy Morpher for me is like too heavy.
Yeah, it's dense.
Um,
That was
Yeah,
the
it
thing.
doesn't
Any of the
feel.
legacy
Yeah,
stuff is like super super heavy, like to a fault on certain things, but like the Morpher is the one I notice the most.
well, and like I like the Morpher. It's just like it loses that functionality, especially when the Japanese toy had that buckle, the original buckle, and like so there was a light version of it that you could have worn if you were able to get it. But it always is kind of one of those things where I'm like, someday when I get a little more secure in my job and make a little bit more money, I'm gonna get one of these. But the further away from it you get, the less you find them, and the more expensive they
Mhm.
become. But
Do
but
you
yeah, from sorry, go ahead.
well, so I'm wondering like is that like a toyetic thing? Like why didn't they include that on the American release? Because a lot of like the American release of those early toys are just built from the molds of the Japanese stuff.
Well, that's the original toys, like the original Morpher says 91 on the back of it, which is
Hmm.
not, obviously not
Not
true
zebra
for
anymore.
yeah. Um, but uh it's one of those things. I don't know. It also was sold with the Blade Blaster, and it wasn't sold like that in Japan. It was just the Morpher. I think the
Hmm.
Morpher came with the crystal.
Like the
Maybe
Zord crystals.
I could be completely wrong. Not all of them. I think it came with like one, but I might be like completely off base. And that could be like I know they did like a legacy version of it. It was oh my gosh, like the Artisan series or something like that. But from what I understand is it's metal and heavy like this because I think in their anniversary episode they used the American toy as the prop for it or whatever.
Hmm.
So it's one of those where I'm like, no, that original plastic toy Morpher from 1993, that is the Morpher they used on the show. That's the Morpher I want. You know, it's just one of those where I'm like, the new one is great and all, but I didn't dislike it. I bought it. I bought I love that there was a Green Ranger one, so you could have both versions. You have the gold one and the silver one, but I still want to get a collection of all those originals. And there's just something simplistic about it too, being able to like, twist the coin out. You press it, it pops open. I don't know. There's just
Do you
something cool about it.
Yeah. Well, so like that was another one of those things. Like I wasn't getting into the role play toys at that age, so it was one of those things where I was like, "Oh, I'm never gonna have that." But do you remember they made like those kind of like Mighty Max, like Polly Pocket things that would
Yeah.
come in Morphers? And I
Hmm.
had the White Ranger one, and that was one of those things. Like my dad would pick me up every weekend. He's like, "All right, you get one toy," and I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna get this toy because A, it's a Morpher.
It's
B,
two toys in one.
it comes with two little tiny figures that don't move at all, but I can use those same Power Ranger figures with my X-Men Polly Pocket that I got 2 weeks ago.
Like they
So
call
like
them Polly Pockets.
my my Morpher that I had was a Tiger Zord one, but it was like it had like wrong coin. Like it wasn't the symbol that he had. It was like a literal tiger. It was so
No, but
weird.
that's the coin they released too. Because so like if you remember, the Dragon Zord that came with the Green Ranger figure came with a power coin, and it was no, it did not come with a power coin. I don't think. I don't think there ever
The
was a Green Ranger power coin, right?
No, the Green Ranger came with the Dragon Zord. It didn't come with coins because
Okay,
I
but
bought that in high school.
the white the White Ranger that came with, because the White Ranger did come with the Tiger Zord though, just like they did the Dragon Sword boxing, I
Hmm.
think. But he came with a coin. There was a coin there. I have it. There's a movie version of it and a regular version of it, and it's just the tiger symbol, the tiger. It's not the symbol. And I'm always remember being like, that's not his coin. The only time I'd ever seen the Green Ranger coin is it's in the dagger, the dragon dagger.
Right.
So,
So,
well, what's another toy that you loved?
um, so I'm looking at my list, but then you talking about the Green Ranger Dragon Zord combo, also the White Ranger thing. Like when I got back into collecting, one of the things that I said high school, it's probably college, like first year of college. Someone got me like an eBay listing, like they purchased me the Green Ranger and Dragon Zord like combo thing, like new, that someone had, and then I found on a website like you could get the talking 8-inch figure of the White Ranger, and they were just like, the reason why we're selling this so cheap is because it only speaks German. And so I had started recollecting the 8-inch figures that I never got when I was little, and it was my start of the collection was the Green Ranger, which was like super mint. The White Ranger was mint too, but it was, you know, it if you press the button, he would just start speaking German, which is incredible. But and super weird.
So one of my I love those action figures though. Those original series action figures that we had in like um since I had my birthday is January 1st, after Christmas, my uncle and my godfather, he worked at a Bradley's, which was a store that no longer exists, but was also like only in New England, maybe, I think. I don't know. But that first year that Power Rangers was really big because he worked there, he was able to snag, like, I got a Blue Ranger, 8-inch Blue Ranger, and I got the original Dino Megazord. So it was quite the Christmas. And then I had a neighbor situation like yours. The neighbor snapped the arm off the Blue Ranger, and I still have that Blue Ranger with his arm and the broken thing. I have another 8-inch figure
Mrs.
that I've gotten, but
Nesbit.
Mrs. That's why I keep him. And because my stepmother was like, there, she fixed it with her gum, and it literally broke and fell off the second the gum dried.
It's like
So it
imagining
still
it
has like,
slowly
oh,
dripping down.
no,
Like,
it still has like remnants of the gum on the shoulder. Like, it looks like you'd be like, oh, did you fix it with plaster? I'd be like, that's double mint gum, actually.
still smells minty.
But I loved that original Megazord. I remember opening that and like putting it together and taking it apart and doing all the modes without ever even looking at the directions. Like, I could just snap it together just based on what it was on TV. And my mom was like, "How are you able to do that so quickly?" And I was like, "Ma, I love this show." And I I just thought I mean, I'm literally looking at it right now in my glass display case in front of me here, and I feel like none of the Megazords since then, like, I have enjoyed other Megazords,
Mhm.
but there was just something about, like, it assembled exactly the way it looked on TV. Like, I love Time Force, but I cannot for the life of me figure out how to get that Megazord to go together and come apart and do mode blue and mode red and stuff like that. Like, it is so complicated.
Do you think
Um,
there's something with that, like, just given the time period that it was introduced to us, where it was just one of those things where it just, like, kinda, like, snapped into place? Because 'Cause I'm picturing, like, I was around that age when, like, I guess Beast Wars, like, the Transformers, like, animal show came out, and I
mhm.
remember
No,
I
I'm
would get
familiar.
those toys and be able to transform them without looking at the directions, and my stepdad, who was, like, an engineer, he's like, "How do you do that, like, so quick?" Like, he used to time me to just like do these transformations like backwards and forwards, and I just don't know if it's like one of those things like the child mind at that point, because I can't do that now. Like, I get Transformers now and I'm just like, I don't.
No, but there's no way. Like, I'm talking this, like, I think it was the Time Force Megazord, and there's like a Lost Galaxy Megazord maybe too. And it's one of the ones that's like one of the ones that joins later that thinks for itself. The blue one maybe. And I remember, like, we had the directions and everything, and I was like, there's my nephew, my cousins couldn't put it together. Like, it was a difficult build, and all I could think about is there was just something to the beauty of this Dino Megazord, the original Dino Megazord, the Mighty Morpher Megazord, that, like, they were the separate Zords where they could be the dinosaurs alone, but then
Mhm.
they had that tank mode, and then you could do the Megazord, Megazord sequence has been initiated, and like make it into the other mode. And so it was also one of those things where I feel like we kind of forget that, but it was, so it's like what you said about Transformers. It was this cool, like, these were dinosaur toys, which I had still, I still at that moment had like a T-Rex, a Triceratops dinosaur, like plastic dinosaur. And now I had these ones that were these other things. So I think there was maybe something to do with it being the thing it was too. The fact that it was dinosaurs and that it could snap together that way and everything. And maybe that's part of the thing with Beast Morphers too. I know they weren't, not Beast Morphers. I'm sorry. Beast Wars. Um, because I know what you're talking about. Like, I know they weren't all dinosaurs. It was
Like, you had
what were the
Optimus Primal, who
Decepticons
was like a
called?
monk. Uh,
Yeah, but they were like
Predacon.
those were
No, not Predacons. Are they Predacons?
yeah,
I think they're
yeah.
Predacons.
But what are the good ones? They weren't auto beast bots,
Maximals. Maximals.
or Maximals. Okay, yeah, because they were all mammals and stuff. Yeah.
Maximals,
Um,
maximize, Predacons, terrorize.
that's a
That's
good
what they would
show.
say in Maximals. Yeah. I mean, like, so yeah, I don't know. Like, this is a weird like aside for like but I feel like the same thing. Like, I also the dinosaur toys, like you're saying, they looked like what they were, But you think about, like, the other seasons that have, like, dinosaur Zords or something like that, there's something just, like, super robotic about them or, like, looking slightly off. Like, even with the Time Force one, there is a dinosaur Zord, right? Like, or am I just imagining that? There's, like, a
No,
T-Rex
no, the
thing.
Quantum Ranger was a T-Rex. He didn't combine with any of the other ones.
But it still looks off. Like, it's, like, more robot than dinosaur, whereas, like, you think, like, Saber-tooth tiger straight up, like, it is a
Yeah, it's a
robotic saber-tooth
saber-tooth tiger.
tiger. It's very
It's
much
got
like
the
a
tail and everything.
Voltron cat, right?
Mhm.
And the T-Rex looks like a T-Rex, and if you get the T-Rex toy by itself, like, it's posable, like, I don't know, there's
Well, I
just
think it
something
had
about the
that one
Megazord.
complicated part was the mastodon coming around it. Like, the way you had to twist the mastodon to get
Mhm,
the arms around was the most complex part, but I also think it was it in terms of a Megazord assembling itself, it was very straightforward. Like, these two pieces are the legs, the triceratops, the T-Rex is the center body, and then the pterodactyl's the shield, and the other one's the arms. So it was very straightforward, I think, too.
mhm.
But give me another toy. What's another one that you love?
Um, so maybe this all can kinda, like, lump together, and I'll kinda go, like, just as this whole series, because I have in my list just movie Shiny, and then McDonald's movie, and then
Movie Shiny.
half birthday Falconzord. So I was writing these, like, shorthand while your mic was having some issues, but, I remember, like, the Shiny, like, figures for the movie, we never got,
Mhm.
like, movie accurate figures really until
No,
McDonald's was like, "Yeah, we're gonna do toys," and they weren't like you buy a Happy Meal and you get the toy. You remember you had to pay for them
the
separately?
separate one. Yeah, yeah.
But it came with like a Zord as like the new Zords, so they weren't like the Thunder Zords. They were the
The
new Zords
Ninja
from the
Zords.
movie, and then they were the closest equivalent to the armored suits that we got in the movie. So I got those, but I remember like my grandparents got me a couple of the movie toys, and they were like, "Yeah, you like this nonsense, right? Um, like, why don't you
They
like
were like
cars?"
metallic armor versions, but yeah.
Yeah. So they were like the same body molds, like, they still had the chunky chest like all the other figures, but I
Oh,
remember
they
I
were
had
just repaints of those. There
yeah,
was nothing different.
they were
Yeah.
back metalized, so I had the White Ranger and I think I had, like, I had all of them except maybe the yellow one I didn't get for some reason, um,
I don't
but
even know. I mean, because they also had the 8-inch line, and then they had the smaller line too. They weren't like the flip heads, but they were the size of those flip head ones.
yeah,
Because
I
those were the ones that came with the power coins. Because if you bought the smaller one, you got the power coin with it. But if you bought the big one, it was just the big one, and they came in maybe they were triangle boxes
that was
still.
also the reason why my parents probably wouldn't trust me to get, like, nicer figures was because I would always lose the accessories. So, like, I don't remember having any of the coins, I just had the figures. And then they had the little pegs in the hand to hold none of the accessories that I had. Um, because I had 0. But I just remember, like, my dad, like, we went to see the movie, and I loved it. And then he was like, "Alright, well, we're just gonna go to McDonald's," and I was like, "Dad, they have the toys." And he's like, "Oh, great." And he's like, "Well, just give me a Happy Meal." And they're like, "Well, they come separately." And he's like, "Which one is he gonna get?" And they're just like, "Well, you can pick any of them." He's like, "Alright, just give me all of them." Like,
Ooh.
so, um,
And they didn't combine. They were just like little cars they
yeah,
sat in.
and they just, like, sit in them. So those were kinda neat, and, I remember
You
I
know what
bought
else I
those.
liked about those McDonald's ones was, the ones you bought were great, but the ones that came with it, you were like, "Eh." Um, the
They had a
Communicator,
Morpher.
though.
Oh, yeah.
No, it had a communicator, and there was not really a readily available communicator toy when we were younger. Like, I've seen stuff since then. I do have a watch that was made essentially that had I have 2 watches. I have the one that you could get somewhere, it might have been like a Sears catalog or something, and it had a little button at the bottom, and you could squeeze it, and it would play the theme song, and it
Yeah.
had the 3 metal prongs over it. But again, it was a flat gray strap. It was whatever. Then they made one that was the metal wrist strap, but it wasn't the 3. It had the same connecting thing in the base of the wrist, but it didn't have the three colors down the side. It just said Power Rangers on a metal strap. But again, it had the 3 prongs with the circular
Mhm.
thing over it, and I also have that still here because I love that watch. But it it's like and then I've seen now that they did have some sort of like a gray communicator looking thing. They had those watches that had like it looked like the Morpher and the face would change or whatever. And so there was no like, that's the communicator they're wearing on the show
Mhm.
toy. And so when they made that one at McDonald's, I was like, ooh. I actually like when my two nephews got into Power Rangers recently, I gave him the one I had, the McDonald's toy, and then I bought another one on eBay for the other one because they loved it so much. And I was like, well, these are like $3, so
Yeah.
whatever. Like,
Well, I had a communicator that was like it was the gray strap with like the strip going down like on the sides of it, and then it had the 3 bars going over it, but was like a hologram thing or a lenticular thing, so it was like that little like bumped up stuff, and you tilted it, and it would be that morphing thing you're talking about, but it would be like either Zordon or it would be the white Power Ranger, and when you press the button, it would either play the theme song or it would say Rangers teleport to the Korean Center. And that was the communicator I had, God, all the way up till high school. Like that was just something I had like hanging on my wall for no reason.
I want to wear a Power Rangers communicator like every day of my life. Like, I don't actually enjoy, I don't think they're terrible. The legacy communicators that they made, I'm happy that they finally were like, all right, we made them. But with everything, like, some stuff in the legacy line is great, and then other stuff I was like, it's like they took an extra step they didn't need to take. Like again with the Morpher, I don't need to hold down the button and have it play the theme song. That serves me no purpose. And the same thing happens with like the communicator. I appreciate that they added the light to it, but like because they added, I mean, the sound effects are great, but it's also at the same time where it's like I kind of just wanted it to be like a bracelet or like one of those old types of watches where you could flip the face open and maybe there'd be a timepiece underneath of it or
Hmm.
something, or maybe you just squeezed it and it said the time, because Star Wars teamed up with like Nixon or whatever, and they made watches that do that and stuff. So I don't dislike them. It's just they're too bulky. They're not accurate to the show. So I have some of the Starlight ones that do nothing, and I'm like, I'm gonna start just wearing these as a bracelet. So
Hmm.
it's whatever. I when I wear it, I'm like, I feel good. And then nosy people are like, oh, what time is it? And I'm like, none of your business.
Because I don't know time. Um,
Time is a
to
construct, you fool.
Let me tell you about my favorite Power Rangers season, Time Force. The last movie thing I have on here, just listed as half birthday Falcon, is because I have a December birthday. I never get good presents, but one year, because my sister was home from the military, her birthday's in the summer, they were just like, well, why don't we just do a collective birthday party, like for both of us? And like, so what it turned into was I got really legit presents, for once. And one of them was my dad, again, got me like a Zord, and it was the Falcon Zord from the movie. And it's like, in terms of just as a toy, like it doesn't do much unless you have the other Zords. But it was just one of those things where I think like I should not be getting this. Like this is not my real birthday, and I'm getting a better present than I would normally get. So it's just another one of those weird movie things. Like that was like a weird year span, I think, of just getting a lot more like toys than I had anticipated.
Mhm. Hey, take it. Remember? Do you remember they made the little ninja? They didn't make the movie suits, but they made those figures that were all in their ninja suits. Like the arms would move if you pushed
Yeah,
them,
they
and
were
they like
like
throw
stretched
little
out in weird
discs.
positions, or like you could squeeze their legs, and like they would do like a, like a gorilla like slam or something. Like they were action features tied to the whatever the new Ninjetti Zords were, or
It's so
Ninjetti.
weird. The movie stuff was so weird because we didn't really get a very good Ivan Ooze action figure ever either. It was the closest thing I think we got was like a Gumby style thing, and but
Hmm.
there was like a Mordant, and because I'm looking at him right now in my display case, and I'm like, I don't know where you came from. I don't know how you
That's
got here.
that's a weird thing too. Like, I remember one of the first times like you were showing me that stuff, and I was just like, "Why do you have this pig? Like, I don't even remember them making this pig man." And you're like, "Modem." Um,
Mordant, Goldar's cousin, I think, is his backstory. But
MVP of the Power Ranger movie.
I think he's funny. You forget I'm a master of disguise, and he goes, "How could I forget? I never knew." That's one of my favorite lines in the movie. Do you want me to make a
Uh,
few calls? That's also one of my favorites. That's because you're a pig. I just watched the movie the other day, but uh, you know what? One of my favorite toys it has been, and like all throughout this is the Astromorpher from Power Rangers in Space. Like because for me, Power Rangers in Space came out of nowhere. And I've told the story in the show before about being like, oh, I remember Turbo getting in there being like, is this the direction this show's taking? Because this is not very good. And
You get your hobo bindle and you're going to leave because you want nothing to do with it.
I remember like going, because this was pre-internet basically, or the beginning of the internet, so I didn't know how to tell what was coming up. So I'm just like in the toy store one day and I'm walking down the toy aisle and the Astromorphers just hanging there in the Power Ranger section, and this is before Christmas, and I was like, what the heck is that? Like, I walk over, I'm like, I'm gonna buy this. That Red Ranger looks insane. And this is their Morpher, and I was like, what is this thing? And I remember like opening it in the corner at my grandparents' house being like, what is this device? And like, I just love that it's like, it's the strap, but I love that it has this, like, the button. I'm literally holding it in my hand while I'm talking, that you like push and it like flips open. I like to wear a different Morpher for a different show. But I love, I loved, this was that time in Power Rangers history, you kind of had to like imagine what it was going to be like and be like, I wonder how this is going to go when the show rolls around in February and it's December. So you had like 2 months with the toy imagining its like story, and this one was cool because what I love about it is like it was the first Morpher where there was like multiple features kind of to it. So it had it had the morph, which was 335. You could call the Galaxy Glider, which was 259. That's what they're called, right? Galaxy Gliders.
Yeah.
The Mega Tank, which was like 761. Then there was these other codes. There's like the Megazord code 541. The computer was 10, and then there's a game you could play. So if you do like 912, hit enter, it'll tell you numbers, and you're supposed to hit them at a certain amount, and it just starts to speed up. And I would play this. It was just such a simple game, but it was so hard, and it was so, yeah, and like the 4 lights on the side would like ding and light up and stuff, and like I just thought it was cool too because the Morpher like spoke to you. And then when the show came around, I was like, oh my god, they use this as a communicator as well, because I've always had that obsession with their communicators, and it's just one of those where like it looks to me exactly like this. Looks like this fits in with the aesthetic of Power Rangers in Space, maybe better than than most of the Morphers I've ever really seen. I'd argue that Time Force also fits its aesthetic very well because it's got that circular metropolis kind of future look to it. But the in space, there's just something about it where it looks very machinery oriented, and I don't know. It looks cool, and it still looks cool to me. That's the thing. Like, I'm holding this, and this Morpher is 22 years old or so, and I just think to myself, like, this is a really awesome toy. Like, I love it. I love that I can still wear it. I love that the band had the embossed symbol from their belt on it. This toy says 1997 on it. This toy is 23 years old. That's insane. It's probably my favorite Morpher. Possibly. I don't know. That's a topic for another show, but it's definitely one of my favorite Power Ranger toys I've ever had. And again, size of the things on the show. So this to me, I'm holding a prop from the show right now. Like, this is my Morpher.
And that's one of those things I think like in that it's going to come up later on with some of my other like favorite things is like not being blindsided by toys, like not being aware of what's coming out. Like, I think we're kind of inundated, especially you and I, like we watch the Toy Fair stuff when they do it, but like just randomly going to a store and be like, well, like you said, wait a minute, I've never seen this before. What is this? And
yeah, walking down the aisle and being like, wait a minute, this is the new season in space? I mean, you knew from the finale of Turbo, but being like, wait, it's all in space? This is incredible.
Yeah. In the, like, I think that just kind of like strikes you for, stuff that sticks with you just because you're the one to find this at that given moment. I think that's how I discovered like those kind of like mini like PVC figures. Like, I was at a dollar store and I was like, wait, they make smaller toys?
Well, it's weird too. Yeah, that was the thing. Like you just said, like when you were a kid, you didn't know. I didn't know there was going to be this toy to look for. You knew there was going to be a Morpher. You knew there'd be like a blaster, weapons, maybe a Megazord, probably a couple of different types of figures, but you didn't know. You weren't
Mhm.
like, oh, I've got to look for this, So unless you, and even with like the Toys R Us catalog, you only saw some stuff, So
And that was one of those things
it's
my
one of those
parents
that's really
wouldn't
cool.
let me see. They were like, when the catalog comes in, we throw them away because we don't want Ken looking through, being like, I want this.
What again, like I loved how like the role play stuff was the side of the show. Another one I really enjoyed, and even though it's not my favorite of the shows, I don't dislike it. Well, I don't love it, but I don't hate it. Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. I I appreciate it for making the choices it makes, but it's not my favorite. But I'm also not going to shun anything from it. But again, I thought their rescue blaster was a really cool toy because when you hold it, you're like, this is the blaster from the show. Like this is the one because they were using them all the time in that season, and I
Mhm.
was like, this is really cool. And they had they're like weapons interchange, so like the blaster you could like twist and pull out the main shaft of the blaster, so it was just kind of the handle part of the blaster, and the other, they're like weapons all made this bird and it could go together. And I remember thinking like that toy when it's assembled as the bird looks really cool. Like it wasn't, it's obviously it's a little smaller than it is on the show, I think, but it still was close enough that I was like, wow, this is kind of a really impressive toy, even though I'm not necessarily like, oh, this is my favorite thing. But it's just one of those toys I think about where I just thought it kind of came out of nowhere, where it just was easy to assemble and use the pieces together, but it was also really worth the purchase of getting them separately too.
Yeah, I guess they would have to come up with ideas and be like, well, how are we going to engage somebody to try to buy all of these things so we can make more money? It's the same reason why they change the bandana colors on like Ninja Turtles, right? It's like no parent is going to
Yeah.
buy the same figure over and over and over again. So if you have like a reason to do it, like then you can have a kid being like, well, no, I need all of them because they go together and they make the rescue bird.
Well, and I'm sure there's a big thing, not everything for me has to be like interchangeable and connect with everything else. I know that was a big thing. Like, I feel like when it got to the Neo Saban era, it was like, okay, well, the Megaforce Morpher, all these cards come with this, and if you collect this figure, then this card goes in here, and then the same with like the Dino Chargers, all came with the different things and worked with the blaster. And I know that's part of the show, but it was like one of my favorite toys is the Time Force Blaster. I want to say I have 4 or 5 of them because KB Toys was going out of business not long after this, and I would keep like when it switched from Time Force to Wild Force, I was like, I gotta start getting the stuff I want. And of my favorite seasons, like there's some things where I was like, someday I might want to do something with this, and I was like, and I want to have enough that every person that's a Power Ranger on the team could have one. So I believe I might have 5 Time Force Morphers. I might only have 4. I thought I got 5 though. But it was basically like I had 2 or 3, and then 2 of my friends had 2, but they gave them to me later, I think. So I'm pretty sure I might, but
Was that the thing
but
you
it,
were getting another one of when we were at Ranger Stop? You're like, can you go ask this guy how much he's charging for that? Was that?
no, I don't think so. That was the helmets, wasn't it?
No, there was another, like, after I bought the helmets, you were like, I've been up to that guy's thing in 2 days and asking him about stuff, so you need to ask him about this Time Force thing. I think you got
Oh, you know what? I think it was the Chrono Saber maybe.
maybe that. I
Or
don't know.
or something. It was something where I was like, "Oh, it's like, I don't need this," but which I'm now realizing I actually have too. But yeah, that was one I got lucky. Something with there was like a lot of Time for stuff on clearance that I was like, "Okay, I'll make my full team." So, and I don't do that with everything. It's just one of those where I was like, someday I might. It was around that time where I'd be like, in my brain, if I ever want to play Power Rangers and I have 5 people over, I want to be like, here's a morpher for every one of you to play. They were also only $10 back then too. So like
Right.
it costs way more to buy just 2 morphers nowadays or 1 legacy thing instead of that stuff. But
Man.
anything else, Ken? Any other big ones for you?
Uh, so I have a couple different things that are like smaller things, but do you remember back to the 15th? We just are either coming up on or passing an anniversary, but do you remember back to the 15th anniversary? That was like I think when things
It was
popped
the
off.
Operation Overdrive. Oh yeah, the Zord Builder. That's what it was called, I think.
Uh, I have no idea what that is referring to. I'm talking about all the other toys that were coming out for the anniversary listed stuff. And you might have to Google some of these things
Yeah,
because they're
no, they had like special sockets so everything could connect with everything.
okay.
Right? You're
I'm not
talking
talking
about?
about those. I mean, they might have been around the same thing, but what I'm talking about is they had 15th anniversary sets, right? And
Mhm.
what they would do is they were vinyl figures. So think of like big in Japan, they have like the vinyl figures that come out for every season. Uh, they had sets of like non-movable vinyl figures, and it was 5 Red Rangers per pack, so they had 3 packs, and it was the
Oh,
all the way up until like that current season. And I remember like that was such a one of those things where I had no idea they were coming, and this was, internet
yeah.
was still was a thing. I was in college, and I was like, I need these, and they were expensive too, but like
They were in
I
like red boxes, right?
yeah, and I was working as a resident coordinator at my college, and so like we had to come up with like team building things. So I was like, "Oh, I can get reimbursed for this if I come up with a reason for these." And I was like, "Can I buy these for a team building activity?" And my like RD was like, "Yeah, like do you have a reason?" I was like, "I'm going to give them to my team and like because we're a team." And they're like, "Okay, here's some money, like spend it." So like I got I got all 3 sets and like dispersed like certain rangers to people like that were, would go accordingly, and then I kept all the ones I liked. Um but so like we went through like probably I think 5 or 6 went out to like the different team members, and I kept the rest of them. But that was one of those things where I was like, they were show accurate suits, right? Because they were vinyl figures. They weren't like super buff or anything, which up to that point was not something we would see normally in America. Like just having like wrinkles in fabric, things like that. Um, so we got those, and then we also got there's another 15th anniversary thing that was like the super buff Red Rangers. That was like they were kind of first messing around with like the idea of like these collector grade like superposable figures.
Those I think were what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Um, and I only got like I think I got the Turbo or something from that series.
I think I have the Mighty Morphin one. I'm not sure. I have the Megazord.
The retro fire thing, like the
Yeah,
little
Retrofire. That's it. Yeah.
that was like cool and like angular and like just had a really neat aesthetic to it.
Yeah,
But
I have the Dino one. That one was cool.
do you remember like right after this they did their Super Legends stuff? Do you remember this
No?
line? Okay, so Super Legends was they were taking like say 2 or 3 figures are like characters from different time periods in the series up to that point. So the first wave was like a Zed, a Green Ranger, and a White Ranger, and they
Oh,
were
I
like
kind of remember
they
this.
were new sculpts, and it was that same sort of thing where they weren't buff. They had like kind of like wrinkles in the fabric and stuff. Um, but like it was like a soft plastic for the shields, and they also like I got the black RPM, so it was around that time. So that had to have been a little bit after 15th anniversary or something. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
because Operation Overdrive was 15th anniversary.
Um, so I remember the Super Legends one. They also did the Green Ninja Force, um, on that in that line too, and I think the Titanium Ranger
The Green Ninja what?
or Ninja Storm. Wow, Ninja Force. What is Ninja Force?
Like,
That's a bootleg one.
what the heck is Ninja
Ninja
Force?
Storm, Green Ninja Storm one, and then the like Titanium Ranger, and like those were just such weird figures where I was like, I had no idea these were coming out. I had no idea I ever wanted these things. I'm getting back into Power Rangers. I have disposable income for a college student. I'm gonna get these. So those are the aside from like legacy stuff. That's kind of the last of
Around
my.
that time, I that was around the time where I feel like Disney really took a dump on the toy line. Like that last RPM and the Power Rangers redo season, I was like, oh, they're definitely gonna make a Morpher. They always make a Morpher, and they didn't make a Morpher. They only re-released like a playset thing, and it didn't even look right. And I was like, what the heck? Like, I know they re-released the Megazord, so some people are like, yeah, but the atrocious Dragon Dagger and Blade Blaster they made were like they were horrendous. And one of the cool toys I had when I was a kid was the original Dragon Dagger, even though I've never been like, oh, Tommy's the best ranger, but it also didn't have this ego attached to it back then. It was just kind of
Mhm.
like it was another one of the Power Rangers. And I always thought, wow, the actual Power Rangers are so cool now because they were able to overtake this evil one and make him part of the team. And so I was like, they're even cooler. So I didn't ever think like, oh, that one's the best one or whatever. I've never thought that. So, but I do understand it's like a face of a franchise sort of a thing too. And I'm not knocking. I like Dino Thunder. I've said that before. I enjoy Tommy coming back to the show as much as he does. I do wish they would roll in other types of shows because it is one of those shows now where it's been on so long that you got to think if you started watching this, you're, um, we're
20,
chasing down the 30th
20.
anniversary in the
Yeah.
near future. So it's like it's kind of like, we're on 26 or whatever, 26 year now, and or not 26 years.
No,
What are we on now?
27, because 28 will be the next one that they announced. 28 is the new Ranger team that will come out.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. And so I just think to myself, if you were born the year that Power Rangers came out, you're 28 years old now, or 27 years old, excuse me. Like, there are kids who are like 21 and they might be like, oh yeah, I never really watched Mighty Morphin. I've never seen Mighty Morphin, but Time Force was my favorite, or oh, the Jungle Fury or something. And I missed that, but also I think we lucked out. I think a lot of the original toys are really good. Is like the original Dragon Dagger. I remember it was like a solid toy. Like
Mhm.
it was something where like we used to fight with it. Like
Yeah, I got hit in the head with
I
the neighbor
I
kid's
think
one.
about having a headache when I think of it sometimes because I got hit in the head with it so hard before. Like I still have my very first like original one of those, and um I just thought it was such a solid toy, and it's so light, but it like when you held that, you're like, I'm holding the Dragon Dagger right now. You know,
Mhm.
it was so close in size to the actual thing, I think. And then the Legacy line came out, and I know I've kind of knocked on it a little bit in here, but I actually think the Blade Blaster from the Legacy line, because it's the correct colors and size wise, it's the right size from the show. They actually, I think, did a really good job with that. I really enjoy that. And I appreciated the Legacy line because, like, obviously we got like the gold staff would be like the correct size, and yes, the power sword was flimsy, but it was the beginning of us being able to get that sort of stuff. I thought the Saba was actually pretty well done
Saba
too. But
is, I'm looking at it right now. That's probably, so you were talking about getting some of that stuff on clearance at Toys R Us when it was happening. Like Saba, I got on clearance, and the Blade Blaster, like I remember I got on clearance, um, close
I
to,
got lucky with that one with like a sale coupons gift certificate scenario. Yeah.
but
But I have one of the Blade Blasters like in my wish list on Amazon right now for another one because I'm afraid to use that one in any sort of like cosplay or Halloween setting or anything. So
I just like one of my Facebook reminders popped up and it was like, you bought a gun on this day, and it was like the Blade Blaster thing I had posted that I bought. But Saba, I think, might be one of my favorite legacy things. But I
yeah,
think that's because like I at a antique store when I was younger, there was a broken Saba that I got, and like I messed around with it and like got it to talk again. But so I've always wanted like a Saba that worked, and that one it has a nice weight. It's like a little, like it feels like a weighty sword. Like that's one where the weight makes sense for the size of it,
hmm
versus like the Dragon Dagger is about the same weight, and it's
it's
not,
very heavy.
it shouldn't be that heavy.
It's like thick too. It's really thick. I feel like the middle part of the Legacy Dragon Dagger is like too thick. Like
Yeah.
it's one of those where I'm like, I'd rather you remove the features and have it be closer to the actual thing
It
than add the features that it doesn't need.
it reminds me of the weight of some of those like the Sabi's workshop like lightsabers. Like
hmm
the like it's thicker than what you would expect a lightsaber to be.
Yeah.
So this is thicker and like denser than what you would expect a dagger to be, because like you see like the Green Ranger use it and it's kind of like super swift and like fluid, and like it's not giant in comparison to his helmet, but like when you put the legacy Dragon Dagger up to like your face, you're just like, you could cover like a third of it or something.
Yeah. I know we haven't talked a lot about like newer stuff. Like I said before, I haven't been like overly thrilled with any of the Neo Saban era kind of toys because I feel like I said, the Dino Charger Morpher I thought was terrible compared to its Japanese counterpart, which I did end up getting at like PMC one year, and I think that toy is awesome. Uh, but it's I think Hasbro is doing a really good job so far. I know people have had like it's sometimes when you're like, look what you're getting and you're complaining about now versus what you were getting before.
Right.
And so like you can still say like, oh yes, this is incorrect, but at the same time I want to be like, thank you for doing this. Like I am excited to see what their Dragon Dagger will come out like, even though I'm tired of buying Green Ranger stuff because it is not my favorite Power Ranger, nor is the White Ranger, but I did buy like the helmet, and the helmet I think is um the much closer and correct size than the other ones. But I'm excited to kind of see what they bring to role play, and I'm hoping they really start to dip into the Morpher category because that's what I'm here for. I'm here for the Morphers.
Yes.
I need a shirt that says here for the Morphers.
Yeah, I'm here for this. And Morphers is what I mean. Do you, in terms of exclusive, because you would go to like a lot more conventions than I would. Like I bought the like non-attending Power Morphicon like thing from the year when they did the Dracon, and like was that the year they did the Green Psycho Ranger? Or that the Green Psycho was somewhere else, right?
No, yeah, Green Cycle I think was San Diego, I think.
So
Or,
I
or
that
maybe
was
that was the silver one,
it
but
was like the tail end of when, they had the Bandai had the license and they were like going all out. So there's like, well, Dracon's going to be an exclusive. It has a nicer box.
yeah,
So
they have that.
I was like, I absolutely want this, but I'm not going. And they had a non-attending thing, so I paid the money for it, had it shipped in the box, and then I found a Green Psycho Ranger, and like we've talked about my Psycho
Ooh.
Ranger love before, but like someone was selling one on eBay, and it was like the the box was fine, and like I was like, I want this. Like, if who knows what Hasbro's gonna do.
The green one was the most important one too in the comics and stuff
Mm-hmm.
now, apparently.
So I have both of those. Those are kind of like the last semblance of like Bandai stuff where I was like, this is great, and it's probably not great. Like the figures that they were doing at the time, like people had a lot of issue with, like obviously the mustard colored like Gold Ranger stuff, and then
Mhm.
like people opened the Dracon and they were like, his legs are super flimsy, and like in comparison to the actual Dracon we got from Hasbro, it's leaps and bounds different. But I think it's just one of those things, like it was such a strange thing to be getting like the probably first comic book based figures that would be like very
Yeah.
significant. So I wanted like that kind of piece of history. Um, but I don't know, like, was there other exclusive stuff aside from like the Green Ranger like Razor scooter?
No, there's like well, yeah, they did like the black and gold Dragon Dagger, or the not the black and gold one, the 24 karat gold Dragon Dagger. They did was there a black Blade Blaster maybe? They did like the Tommy collection. There's something else that was exclusive because somebody got one thing for me. I paid them for it and I was like, okay. But I mean, like, we got the black and gold pop vinyl for like PMC, um, for the Megazord, and there was a couple they were doing that, but was really annoying. Like sometimes it was stuff where you're like, and then other times it'd be like, I really want that. Why would you make that an exclusive? You could have made so much more money by having it not be
Mm-hmm.
exclusive. That didn't really ever make sense to me. I should also say I misspoke earlier about the Hasbro and the Morphers. Like I'm aware they've made more regular Morphers. I'm talking about like Lightning Collection
Like
Morphers is
collector
what I meant
grade.
before. Yeah, because I'm staring at the Hasbro Beast Morpher I have on the top of my shelf here, and I'm like, and they did. I do think they did. I think they made that. It's interesting because it has more functionality than the Japanese toy did, which is so weird. Like,
Mm.
what a weird thing to do, like alter the toy, like something that I don't think you see very often, but it's cool. But Well, that's all I have. If you don't have any more standout ones.
That's it for me. I think we covered most of it.
Well, I think that's some of the favorites we've had over the years, and I think you and I are in agreement that we are looking forward to see what the future holds with Hasbro toys. And I feel like the Lightning collection for me has already been awesome. I wish it just wasn't so action figure heavy, but I know that you're like, oh god, there's so many figures.
Mm-hmm.
I know you don't get them all, but I
I
know
don't
that
get them all, but
basically every time you're like, I'm not
I'm
getting
like,
them all,
my
but
Trini's pre-ordered. It's coming any week now. So
uh, I'm so jealous. That was the one where the first one I didn't do the pre-order, and it's like gone, and I'm like, ugh.
I didn't get Blaze. I should have
So
got Blaze.
I think you still can though. I think Trini is the only one that's really been sold out so far. Trini, and then I know that the Ranger Slayer also went
I have
really quick
her
because I like
pre-ordered.
panicked. Yeah. But yeah, so we're hopeful for the future. But Ken and I would like to know what your favorite toys have been. Anybody out there is listening. We have all of our social media up and running. So if you are on Twitter, if you prefer Twitter, you can talk to us at Podcast Rangers. On Twitter, that's one word, Podcast Rangers, and the same on Instagram too. Instagram is really just like some of Ken's artwork. Every time we do a little episode, he does just a little ranger doodle for us. I don't know how long he can keep that up for, but he doesn't have to. Eventually, we'll use that for pictures of like some of the toys and all that sort of stuff. I just have to, get into the groove of everything. But if you want to suggest any show topics, I also release these on YouTube. If anybody prefers to just leave it running in their YouTube app for whatever reason, it's still just audio only on there. But like for the bracket episode, I added the visual of the bracket and stuff like that. That's also Podcast Rangers. So you can leave comments on there. You can send us an email, podcastrangers@gmail.com, for future show topics, any sort of discussion topics you'd like to see us have. I'd love to get a dialogue going for anybody out there who ever listens to this. I want to hear we want to hear back from you, like I said, show topics, what your favorite toys were, any of that sort of stuff. So, but thank you, Ken, for having this delightful conversation with me. I don't know about you, but I really want to go play with the Power Ranger toys I have out right now.
I'm like, how hard would it be to take Saba off the shelf to mess around with?
Oh, I have a whole somebody gave me a bunch recently, and they're all like packed away under my my futon in my office, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go pull that out, I think. Go through it right now. But yeah, so that'll do it for this episode. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time with another episode of Podcast Rangers.
Bye.